Hey everyone, what's up? Now today we're actually going to be talking about which manufacturers make the phones that last the longest. So firstly you have two main OSs. We're starting with Android, we have iOS also. And under them, in terms of the iOS bracket, you just have Apple. And in terms of the Android bracket, you have many different manufacturers. Now to keep this video nice and simple, I'm going to simply tell you which two manufacturers I think make the most long-lasting phones out there. And yes, one of them is Apple, which might be a bit controversial, but we will get onto that in a minute. So let's start with Apple. Their phones, in terms of updates, they are usually covered 4, 5 to 6 years, which is crazy compared to the Android market, which we'll get onto in a bit. So for example, you can take the iPhone 5S, and that phone, starting with iOS 7, got updated all the way to iOS 12. Take, for example, a new phone, the 6S, which came out 2 years later. That phone started on iOS 9, and it has just received iOS 14, which is crazy. So it has that support behind it with Apple. And on top of these updates, they usually get 1 or 2 years of security updates depending on the phone, but that's not always guaranteed. So what you can assume with Apple is that you're going to get at least 4 to 5 years of updates on your phone, which is an amazing thing to have. And it means that you can even buy secondhand like I am doing soon. I might be buying a 10S and still knowing that it will be updated and will be supported just as if I was buying a new phone. Now, since Apple released iOS 12 and also iOS 13, their phones on older generations actually improved in terms of performance. So for example, we look at the 5S. When that was on iOS 11, it had become reasonably slow because we've been updating it. And as we expected back in the day, phones just got slower as you updated them with Apple. But when iOS 12 came out, that brought speed back to the old phones and re-optimized them, which was an amazing thing to have. Now, if you pair that idea with some of Apple's newer phones, such as the iPhone 7, so anything from there on onwards, personally, I would say is usable nowadays and has very, very good processors. That is when Apple really upped their game, and that was taken to another level with the iPhone 8, and of course every year, but I am just saying that any phone from the 7 and onwards do have great performance physically. Now, adding that software idea that we just talked about previously, it makes them very long-lasting phones. And I'm predicting the iPhone 7 is probably going to be usable for at least another 2 to 3 years, and the 8 and the X is probably usable for at least another 3 or 4, depending on your usage type and whether or not you are a power user. When I say usable, I don't just mean usable in the sense that, oh, it's not going to slow down too much. I mean, you're going to receive support and most likely security updates. And again, that is not always the case on Android. So that is another thing to definitely keep in mind, and the main reason that I did put Apple on this list. Now, there are a couple things I would mention, one of them being the repairability on Apple's side. So if we are thinking about iPhones, they are getting more and more unrepairable. And that is because of Apple pairing the Face ID, pairing the screen, pairing now the cameras on the new iPhone 12s to the motherboards. So you can check out actually Hugh Jeffrey's video, someone I watch consistently, and he has shown that to be the truth on the new iPhone 12, which is very annoying. And that means that in terms of repairability, the iPhones are becoming less and less long lasting. So that is another way to look at it. But in the end, all phones are going to head towards this. Maybe not the repairability side of things, but at least the thinning of phones and the new designs we are getting are just becoming more and more, everything becomes soldered to the board, and in the end, just not repairable, which is very sad to see, especially with the fact that lithium-ion batteries are just essentially disposable items and do need to be changed often. So that is one thing to be thinking about. But again, for me, the fact that you get updates outweighs that for now. Now, if we head over to the Android side, you might expect me to say Google. If you are someone who's into tech, you might think, oh yeah, Google, they're the ones that have been giving updates. They're the ones, they own Android. They must be doing great on that. Personally, I would actually disagree though. Now, I had a Pixel 2 XL. After it had been out for 3 years is when I started to use it, as it was one of my family members' previous device. I reset it, and I used it as my daily driver, and personally it was too slow. Now you can actually check that out in my past video here, and you can see me talking slightly about the performance of the 2XL in comparison to the iPhone 7, which is actually a year older than it, which is a surprising thing considering the iPhone 7 I find faster. But that's beyond the point right now. I'm just saying that personally, I found the phone to be a bit slow, and when we are talking about speed for me comes before the updates. Now, if we think about it like this, you can think the priority speed is number one in terms of long lasting, updates is number two, and then repairability over time is number three. Apple definitely has the speed, Apple also has the updates, but the repairability isn't there. Now, if we are talking about the Pixel 2 XL, even repairability on that isn't that great in terms of fixing the screen, but let's put that out of the picture for a second. In terms of speed, I don't find it to be there. Updates, it was there. So that is one thing that we do have. I had the latest Android 11 on the Pixel 2 XL, which was great. But then again, Pixels don't seem to be getting anywhere near the same amount of updates as you get on iPhone, so it's still under the iPhone in that category. And then repairability is okay because they aren't pairing their parts just as Apple is doing. But I would still rate Apple over Google in terms of long lasting. But then you could also think about Samsung and maybe a Galaxy S9, which came out the same year as the iPhone 8, which stopped receiving updates a while back and is just not on the same level even as Google, because it is a third-party manufacturer and obviously they don't own Android, so they put their skin on top of it and they're not always going to be giving you the latest updates, and when they even do, it's usually very delayed and you don't receive it instantly. And by that I mean you don't receive it at the same time as people on Google or near a stock phone do. So you'd be only getting maybe 2 years of updates on most Samsung phones, which for me kind of puts them out of even wanting to buy them nowadays, unless you're going secondhand and you found a deal on one that fits what you need. In terms of the Android company, I would actually recommend that is OnePlus. And you've most likely heard of this brand. They have had an interesting history coming from originally the OnePlus One, which was a very cheap phone, and slowly bringing up their price to become more into the mainstream market. I bought in around the middle when they were selling for about £550. I bought the OnePlus 5T directly from them and I loved that phone. And the crazy thing about it is the performance for me never really changed over the whole use of it, and also the battery life, but that is not as important. But just to mention, the battery life was always great. The OnePlus 5T was one of my favourite phones ever all round. Came out in 2017, it received updates for 2 years to Android 10. You can now get custom ROMs on it to Android 11. And it's getting security updates most likely till the end of 2020. Now this for me is very, very good in terms of updates, but again, comparable to the likes of Samsung. But in terms of speed, it never slowed down. And that is because of OnePlus's optimization with Oxygen OS. Now, it actually had the same processor as the Pixel 2 XL that I had, but it was much, much, much faster, I found. And it did run benchmark slightly better, but I believe the main performance gains were from OnePlus's Oxygen OS, which is their skin-ish, or just a version of Android you could say, which was very, very, very well optimized. It had very fast animations, it gave a few customization features, but in the end it left it stock and made it better and more performing than even regular stock Android that I had on the Pixel 2 XL. There we are, that is my experience on OnePlus, and I have heard from multiple different reviews that I've read and watched online the OnePlus phones since then, and even some of the older ones such as the OnePlus 5 have been the same as that and just been powering through daily use. And for me, I would personally consider a new OnePlus phone if I had not wanted to go down the Apple route, which I am personally doing for different reasons. I could cover them in another video if you'd like to see that. And so if we put OnePlus onto that scale, we can put the performance number one at being very, very good. We can also put updates at being reasonable. And then in terms of repairability, that OnePlus phones, at least the OnePlus 5T for me, because of the way the screen is attached with screws and not glued on like on Pixel phones, it can come off very easily and is repairable, such as the battery is replaceable and camera is replaceable, screen maybe not so easily, but due to those screws you can easily replace the battery, for example, and things aren't paired to the phone as they are on Apple devices. So if we had to take any Android phone manufacturer in particular, I would definitely put OnePlus at the top of that. So there we are, Android and iOS. Apple comes out on top, of course, for iOS, and then secondly, I would definitely put OnePlus in there. There we are, those are the two phone companies I believe you should be looking at in terms of long-lasting and long-performing phones. And in the end, those are realistically the two most important categories to be looking at when buying a phone. Now, if you guys would like me to actually do a video comparing which OnePlus phone and which iPhone I would buy personally right now in 2020 with different budgets. I can go ahead and do that video for you guys. Just let me know down in the description if that is what you're interested in. So thanks everyone for watching the video, and I will see you in my next one. Have a good day. Comment, like, share, subscribe, and share it to all of your friends, anyone that you think might be interested in videos like this. I really appreciate it. Trying to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Hopefully I can do that. And again, wanted to say thank you guys for 50 subscribers. I forgot to mention it in my last video, but I really do appreciate it. And I was not honestly expecting that to happen anytime soon, really. But yeah, really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.